Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Laurie Davis, and you're listening to the Dr. Laurie Davis Show, streaming live right now on www.e360 TV, YouTube, Laurie Davis Show host. If you search that, you'll find us. And also on our Facebook page, Self Worth the Missing Link Superstars. Having a little challenge today with our guests getting here, so I'm just going to fill in the blanks until that happens. We have a beautiful snowy day here in the Great Northwest, but it's not going to last long because the ground is warm and it's kind of melting as it falls, so to speak. So today we wanted to just do a part 2 to worthy Indigenous parenting. It's just such a hot topic right now. And I had invited a couple of my clients who are in the process of taking the workshops. We're almost finished, 9 out of 10 coming up. Number 9, showing parents how to surrender the victim role. And number 10, pillars and pitfalls for children. So it's been an exciting journey. We've been piloting the program now for about 2 months. And that's one of the things that I love to do. I like to pilot things and test them out before we actually take them to market. And that's what we've been working on. One of the things we've been working on. Oh, I was so excited this morning. We graduated our charter group of clients. Are you ready for this? 100 Shades of Entrepreneurship. During COVID, I was involved in a book project called Ignite the Entrepreneur, and I decided, you know what? This is a textbook. So, like if you just look at it, it's like this is a textbook. And in here are the stories of 35 international entrepreneurs, yours truly included. And we wrote our story of how we got involved in business and why we want to be in business. Just saying. And so I put a workshop together, actually 100 workshops. And I found 4 people who were willing to participate and allow us to do a pilot. And today we graduated those 4 individuals after 100 workshops. We did 2 a week. Is that not a big commitment? But they did it. They kept showing up and we kept doing the work, and they all had wonderful things to say. And so now we're busy working on bringing worthy Indigenous parenting to as many communities that would like it. If you don't want it, that's okay. But we know that it's very much needed. And I had invited a couple of my clients to be with me today. They're not here yet, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be. So in the meantime, I would just like to talk a little more. We did do a show last week with a couple of my clients who are learning how to facilitate that workshop series. And it's really exciting. And a couple of weeks ago, my colleague and I, Gloria Gray Eyes, we spoke at a conference and we presented Worthy Indigenous Parenting for All Children, featuring using as our basis the medicine wheel, meaning that we need to be balanced emotionally, physically, spiritually, mentally, and then applying 10 of the Cree virtues. There are more than 10, but applying those 10 virtues to the process. And it has been amazing. That's all I can say. And so I'm hoping that Gloria joins us shortly so we can talk a bit more about it. But we just wanted to highlight this because it's such an important issue within every family out there. I mean, not just Indigenous families, but every family. And how would we benefit if we could learn the medicine wheel and 10 of the many virtues of the Cree culture? You think that might help us no matter who we are? I'm thinking. Okay, well, I see my friend is here, so I'm just going to punch her in here, Gloria. And good afternoon, Gloria. Thank you for being here.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry for the little technical challenge. I'm not sure what's going on, but hey, somebody maybe doesn't want us to be together,
Who knows?
right?
Hmm.
So, how about a little introduction for our viewers today? Over to you, Gloria. Who are you and what do you do? And I was just sharing our little poster with people
Oh,
that
yeah.
you and I have collaborated, and we're moving right along here.
Oh,
So,
really?
yeah, we are. You know that.
Hmm.
You can't stop a good thing, right? Once the creator grabs a hold of something, you want to try and stop it, you go right ahead.
Hmm.
Over to you,
So,
Gloria.
my name is Gloria Grey Eyes. I'm from the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation, Treaty 6 area of Saskatchewan, Canada. I go Canada because Canada is just a corporation. It's not necessarily, in my heart, I'm from Turtle Island, and that's all of North America, not just Canada. I work in my home community of Muskeg Lake as a prevention worker. I, being a prevention worker here in the community, I work in between the health field, the wellness field, and the apprehension field. And what I do is I go to families and ask them if I can help them in any direction of life, meaning the four dimensions of the medicine wheel. And then, so we go through a series of question and answers and stuff like that. And they let me know where they're struggling in what areas, whether maybe it's housing, maybe they need renovations on their housing, maybe they need just an overall within their own home, such as how we all get overloaded eventually with if we don't declutter on a regular and irregular, your home just becomes just so cluttered that you feel unmanageable and you need and oftentimes that's all it is that they need is someone to come in and help them sort through these things, sort this stuff so that they can get control of their home. And then maybe it's wellness, maybe it's addictions, maybe it's there's bullying going on at the school, maybe there's just a whole realm of possible places and experiences that I could help a family with. And if I can't help, we have what I come from in within our community. It's called the Hub, and what the Hub does is we gather together around a family, and every different department that can help them jumps on board, and we just help that family, especially when a self-declared family, if they wave at us and say, "Hey, please come and help me," then we do what we can. We So it's just a big overall helping field. And so how I connect with Laurie and the Laurie Davis show is that I'm a traditional First Nations Cree woman, and I come from traditional Cree family, and we have been land based all of our lives. As in, my dad was always a hunter, fisher, gather. My mom was the berry gatherer. We all went as a family. We would stay for 3 days just picking berries and fishing. And so it was, and like we had to learn how to preserve all the stuff that we think. We had a huge garden, and we learned how to do all the preservation for in every which, the dried, the freeze, the everything, and the canning and that. And so I come from a family that has struggled to keep our children out of the residential school. So it was a very back, like what I was born in the 60s, and that's just when the government was starting to lay off and allow the First Nations people to be who they are. And so I come from a family where we had to balance not being put into the kids not being put in the residential school, which meant that our parents had to abide by taking your children to church every Sunday morning, teaching them English, not teaching. So I lost my Cree, not all of it, but a lot of it.
Mhm.
Um, we never got to be powwow. Well, we did later, but not growing up as little kids. We never got to experience being on the powwow trail or those kind of like public functions. But on the family level, we still maintained the feasts, we still maintained the sweats, we still maintained praying in the home every day, we still maintained the virtues and living by the virtues, the love and respect and humility and good child rearing, cleanliness, and like those are just a few of them. But so now, me coming to work back in my community after I've raised my kids, I went to school in 2012 and finished my degree for social worker. 2015-16, I came back and I began working for my community. I was in the school system doing a lot of land-based learning and stuff like that for 5 years, and then COVID hit, and then now I'm back and I came back to the school initially, but I bounced over to the prevention area because our community is one of the First Nations communities in Canada to tell the government that we've never, ever given up our children, the right to look after our children. And so there's been a bill passed in Parliament, Bill C-92. And what that is, it is Chief Kelly Wolf and the Minister Miller, who is the Minister of Indian Affairs and whatever, will do a virtual announcement. And that was about that Muskeg Lake was taking back the files of the children that are in care. So, although we have children in Muskeg Lake band members in care in a variety of places in Canada and the States, they now Muskeg Lake has told the government, we want those files. We need to look after those children. So we don't take them from their present home right now, but we get the files. We get to communicate with them. We get to let them know that you're from Muskeg Lake, you're loved, and we are wanted. And sometimes for children who have never had that, that's a world of difference to them.
Huge,
And
huge.
so that's so so at that point when that was happening, I felt the need, because I have a social work degree, that I needed to come and help our community in this endeavor. And so I came on board, but I came on board as a prevention worker. And what I do is I help the community, the families within our community, to try and live as good a life as they possibly can in all the different areas of the medicine wheel. And whatever they're lacking in, that's where I step in and I try help. So because I come from a traditional background, I and when I get to do my work here as a prevention officer, I get to also get professional development training. And I chose to go and take a traditional parenting workshop for a week. And in that week, what it did was it reaffirmed to me that what I had learned and what I had been practicing was very valid. And this is what the people need. And so, in collaborating with Laurie, she does her workshops and she does her parenting workshop, and we just thought, well, what a fantastic idea to bring the two together. And so it's the Worthy Indigenous Parenting. And so with that, it's teaching, as she was talking about, the medicine wheel and the four quadrants of the medicine wheel, and what does that entail, and then how does the virtues relate to that, and how do all these things relate to becoming a healthy parent, a healthy family. And so that's how I connect with Laurie. So yeah, so we're looking for another 12 participants here in Muskeg Lake or area, or whoever, fill 2 more classes. So
Right. I'm just going to get you to, when you speak again, just to get closer to your computer. We heard everything you said. I was just a little not quite maybe the
loud.
volume. So just, yeah,
Okay.
we
Yeah.
heard everything. That sounds wonderful. Yeah. So right now, I would love for you to put on your client hat. So in other words, we started you off with, you had taken some other training with us, of course, but
Mhm.
with the parenting, we've just done week 8 last week.
Mhm.
So as a parent and a cook, I'm sitting in that workshop. What are some things that you can see happening for yourself and for our other clients, as to how it could change the way they interact with their kids? What are some things that
Um,
you
some of the things that I see happening because
just
we're
come forward a little bit? Just come forward, move closer to your computer.
well, it's not
There
my
you go.
computer, it's my phone. So maybe I'll just turn
Okay,
this
that's
sideways.
fine. There, that's better.
There we
That's
go.
better.
Okay.
Perfect.
So besides my own viewpoint of taking this worthy parenting and now interacting with the worthy Indigenous parenting, I see how and I've gotten comments back from some of the parents stating how they feel that this program has allowed them to take a step back, look into their families and see how they're operating and see what kind of things they can bring into their family, into their parenting, into their daily lives, and what things they need to shed. What kind of things do they need to let go of? Like over last couple hundred years, yelling has become a very acceptable action in homes. And it's not an acceptable action. It's not acceptable to yell and scream at people or at each other. People need to be, it's okay to have differences of an opinion. It's okay to be different, have, like do things a different way, but you need to talk it out. You can't yell and scream at one another and call each other, all these colorful names that we've all heard. And so things like that, they get to see that those things are going on in my house and they aren't good and they need to change. And how are we going to change these things? And how are we going to implement these new things? And so I've gotten some really incredible feedback from the young parents here, and they're stating things like, yeah, like there's some stuff there that, like, how I talk to my kids, how do I reprimand my kids, as opposed to how am I teaching them to live a healthier life? Like taking the reprimand out of the equation and putting in relationship communication in there, teaching them those kinds of things so that when they're older and they need to start making their own relationships, they're not being attacked by those heart pounding, stomach turning, shaky feelings when the truth is being spoken. It's so hard to um, change how a whole world is. But I see that we are doing it successfully within a few families, one family at a time. And that's how I believe, because in each of those families, there's like three, and then the other one, there's 4 kids. That's 7 people that we're affecting. 9 people, yeah, 11 people with the parents and each of those children. And so it has a huge effect. It has a huge effect on our participants.
Right. And so when I talk about, bringing a parent in, like a mom or a dad or a grandparent who's looking after the family, maybe mom's in treatment, maybe dad's not in the picture, or vice versa. Um, all we have to do is empower one person in a family. So when you think about that, when we have one of our young parents in the workshops, like you just said, I'm just repeating what you said, Gloria, we're not just changing the lives of that one person,
No.
we're changing the lives of everybody they're connected with. That's a pretty small investment for prevention, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're going to be doing that. We'll be doing more of that, and we're getting some a lot of first time parents coming in.
Oh,
So
good. Yeah.
we'll be able to affect.
the
their
change.
parenting, because I know that a lot of our parents, our younger parents, their parents are the generation that's really struggling with the new drugs, the new,
Yeah,
and the
fentanyl and all
and
that.
like and technology is another struggle in itself. It's just about a struggle as the gambling and the drinking and the drugging and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And so we're allowing them to see their family put here so that they can look in and see it and be able to affect change. Yeah.
Well, you and I had a wonderful time a couple of weeks ago. Some of our viewers might know about this, some of them may not, but Gloria and I spoke at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and there were approximately 200 parents or grandparents sitting in front of us, aunties, uncles, and one of the statistics that I was like blown away, and it in this particular organization that hired us to come in, I think they have about 8 communities in their care, and they shared that 40% of their population is under the age of 18. Wow, what an opportunity we have to impact those young people if we can get our parents, or not if, when we get our parents on side. That's a huge piece of the population that could be, um, for as far
Impacted.
as prevention. Never see the inside of a detox center, never see the inside of a jail, never see any of the struggles that we've experienced to date. What were your thoughts
Mhm.
on that? Like, I think that'd be pretty prevalent among most of the communities. What do you think? 40%
Um,
or so?
yeah, 40% is huge. Um, as everybody knows, in the last 20 years, maybe, it's been a very sharp rise in suicides.
Yes.
And that, I believe, a lot of that struggle is the feeling of not belonging, the feeling of inadequacy, the feeling of not even knowing what is your purpose. Because they say that every one of us have a purpose and we have it within us, and it's to find it, and that's what life is about, is that struggle to find your purpose and live your purpose until you die. And that generation, that 20 years, produced all these under 18-year-olds. And there are a lot of parentless youth, that age group around here, because of the suicide rate. And yes, we have, not only do we have the opportunity, but almost the obligation to help these youth, these young people, anybody, whether they're grandparents, whether they're chapan. Chapan is great grandparent in Cree. I just became a chapan. But anyway, um, yeah. So I think it's our obligation to us, because we have the know, to get out there and to do it, and to help, and to get as many people as we can involved in these, into our programming, so that they can in turn talk to others, and they can, if not give them the same, then to show them to where we are, and that we can help them. And yeah, I totally believe that this is it's a paradigm shift, and we're going to shift it to um, giving that self confidence and the communication skills that are so, um, they're not good. The English language is such a funny language.
Oh,
and
yeah.
when you're a different language, and you're a language from the land, that almost all First Nation languages, be it like Philippines or anything, their language are descriptive, as opposed to, such as, I'm going to give you an
Yeah.
example.
Give us an
This
example.
this right here, this thing here, it's called mitsunatik. So in English we call it a table. In Cree, that means a place to eat. It doesn't mean this, and natik means this thing, this thing. So a place, this
Oh,
thing
okay.
where you go to eat. So it's not necessarily a table. It could
Right.
be out in the backyard in the middle there and just on a blanket or something. Mitsunatik just means to, so that's what I mean by descriptive. It just describes a thing. It doesn't say table. It doesn't say, like
Right.
just. So that's why I
Wow.
say English is it's I don't even know. I don't know how to say it, but what I do know is that it's hard for people who have the First Nations languages um, as their base, whether you're fluent in it or not. That's what you were born of,
Right.
and so switching at any point, whether it's your first language now, English is my first language, but I still kind of think in terms of in the Cree way. I don't know if that makes sense, but anyway,
Well,
so
yes.
um, so belonging is part has been up is a part of everybody. Everybody in this world needs to feel that feel of belonging and knowing where you're from, and that where you're from and that who you're from is worthy, and beautiful people and that. But the colonization has stomped on the First Nations people so steadily that a lot of the First Nations people's pride and self worth and belonging and stuff has taken a real beating, and so a lot of people haven't been able to get the help, or haven't had their families have just been so destroyed that they haven't even been able to help each other out of that fog or that whatever it is. And now what we are bringing to the people, and what we're bringing, is that self-confidence, self-empowerment, communication skills, and these things, so that you're able to actually sit at a table and communicate and not
Hmm.
have it break out into a big fight. Being
Right.
able to have two different views is what it's
Yes.
called, and
Yes.
not having to come to blows, but to be able to converse it out and still go get up and walk away from the table feeling okay that you voiced your opinion, but you weren't rude and ignorant about it.
Right. Right. Well, one of the reasons why English is so difficult to learn, because I have a lot of clients who have been immigrants
Hmm.
also, coming to America from another country.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And so, for example, you've got the word BOW. Well, that can be a bow, like a bow tie, or
Hmm.
it could be a bow on a fiddle. And then we have BOW, meaning bow, like the bow of a boat, or you bow down. And then you have a tree branch called a bough, BOUGH. Well, how does that make any sense? And this is why English is so convoluted, because it's not just the way you say the word, it's the way it gets spelled. And that's one of the things I love about the Cree language is you taught me this. You just say it as you see it.
Hmm.
It's completely phonetic. And that would be so easy to learn versus English if I was coming in from Spain and I didn't know anything. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about how the role of a parent deteriorated in the first place. Because as a culture, the culture was always extremely protective of their children, protective of their women, honoring the givers of life, etc. So let's educate some of our viewers who may not even understand how that all went south. And of course, that came with colonization. And even when we say the word colonization, a lot of people don't know what we're talking about. They don't understand because they're fifth generation German or fifth generation French or the Europeans. Um, the average European who came over here on a boat had no idea what was going on.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what does that mean for the Indigenous people to have been colonized, or particularly in that area of parenting? How did that get disrupted or dysfunction?
Okay. Okay, first of all, 1400s, there was a papal bull that was created. And what that is it's all that is the law of the church. And what the church said was that the people wasn't they didn't even refer to us as the First Nations as people. They referred to them as beings. And the beings that were living on this continent, because they wanted to come and claim it, and so that they could do it with their own law, they made these. And also the doctrine of discovery is the other paper. But for the first paper, they said that any beings that were living on this plane of Earth, that North America, were not human. And the second is that the doctrine of discovery, and that was that um, if there wasn't anybody living there, as in how we think of living in, with a little square house and a yard and, all the fields and stuff like that, and plowing it up and making a living and living in that one spot forever. Because the people who lived in North America were very nomadic, and they went with the buffalo, they went with the seasons, they went with where the land was producing the food at the time, because there was some warm while it was being cold over here. And so they were nomadic people. And so then with the doctrine of discovery, the European people came in and they put a flag down and they said, nobody's living here. This is my spot. And that became law. And that was how they got to own the first pieces of land. And then they just railroaded through North America in every which direction. And so that happened. Then, moving forward, a whole bunch of other stuff happened. There was being put on reserves, and there was being starved out and kill the buffalo so that you could kill the Indian. And so that didn't work. So then they decided, well, let's make some schools, and we will call them student residential schools, and we'll take the Indian children away from their parents, put them in these schools, make them forget that they're Indians, and turn them into little white people. Well, that didn't happen either. 7 generations later, we are now dealing with the effects. So what happened was they took the children from their homes, and they brought them up in a very harsh climate in the residential schools, where they were badly abused, whether it was physically, often getting beat, sexually, often being raped, verbally, always being told that they were their families and their parents and who they were was no good, and just always making them believe that a First Nations way of life was not a good way of life, and that if they would just live the way the Europeans lived, then you would have yourself a good life. Well, that didn't happen. It didn't work out. We're still First Nations people. We're still calling ourselves First Nations people, and we're still living the way of a First Nations person's life. And that is to be caring and sharing and valuing women as life givers, valuing men in their roles, and enhancing the roles of the warrior and the hunter and the provider, and not in the European way. They taught the First Nations men to hit their women, because when they first came to North America, the women had women's societies, they had elder societies, and because they were home all the time, they held the societies and they made the laws of the communities, because the men were out hunting and providing and doing all that, and they didn't have the time. The elder men had also a society as well that they interacted with. So when they got the kids and they got them into the residential schools, and they proclaimed that the only good way to live would be the Christian way or the Pentecostal way or whatever, like there was like many different churches that ran these schools, and as long as they were some kind of a sect, a religious sect, they were allowed to get paid to run these schools. As we see now, a year ago now, they one of the residential schools, they found 215 graves of little children who had been murdered in that one school, and so it was big news. It went everywhere. And then the next student residence they checked, there was another 300 bodies that they found, and now they've checked, I think.
Oops, we lost her.
Yeah, they've checked 12 schools, and they found over 5,000, close to 6,000 baby bodies. And those are not even the ones that they threw in the incinerators. And there's many stories of little girls being impregnated by the priests, and then those babies being thrown into the incinerator. So all the parenting skills and techniques and virtues and all those things, they were not taught. And so then 7 years, 7 generations of this, 107 years, I think it is, 110 years, they did residential schools. And so they did away, or they tried to do away with anything to do with First Nations, raising your children like that, having the respect for the women, believing in the Creator, believing in our traditions and values and ceremonies. But now all that's back, and we can begin to do this again. I just seen that my phone's going to die, Laurie. So
Okay,
I think that's what just happened.
okay.
So
Can you charge? Do you have a charger with you?
I don't. I left it in my truck, but I can get
Okay,
on through the computer. Yeah.
okay. Well, while you're making that transition, I can talk a little bit about what I know
Mhm.
um, with regard to the residential school system. Why don't you convert to your computer? And while you're doing that, I'll fill in the blank. Does that work?
Yeah, you do that.
Okay. Well, actually, the residential school system in Canada lasted 125 years, and the Indian boarding schools in the United States only lasted 40 years. And in after 40 years, the government abolished that whole system. And so that's why you have our brothers and sisters south of the border a lot more traditional than some of our people in Canada. They weren't entrenched as long as we were. And I recall my dad grew up in Stewiacke, Nova Scotia, and about, I don't know, 15 minutes down the road in Shubenacadie, there was this huge building. It was a residential school, you can bet. But we always thought it was a hospital. We never had any idea of what it was or what was going on in there. Not a clue. We didn't know. And so you see, this is a part of history that we were all deprived of, native and non native. We were all deprived of the truth and what really went down there. And so, what Gloria and I are doing, and it's a big project, and we're going to need lots of help, and that is to bring back traditional parenting techniques and skills based on the medicine wheel, based on the virtues. And this is massive because our young parents, and you know what I've been thinking, Gloria, it doesn't even matter if somebody's Indigenous or not, they can benefit from these teachings. And there was a prophecy that we would eventually go back and rely upon our Indigenous communities for teachings, health, parenting, traditions, because before European contact, all of that was in place here already. And so a lot of non-Indigenous people are seeking out the teachings and the traditions because it's supporting them too, because they recognize that our Indigenous communities have the truth of it all. Are you back on your computer now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
I'm on
tuned
my.
back?
Yeah, I'm back in.
Okay. So, yeah, so some of those are the things that have impacted us. And so, parenting, the only way that, let's talk about this, Gloria, you and I, and I'd love your thoughts on this for our viewers. Um, the only way that we can impact and affect change in the next generation is to educate the parents. What are your thoughts on that?
we have a lot of young parents and that are new parents, and they're interested, and our younger parents are now a more involved generation because the swing is on the upswing again. It was a hard and steady decline, and colonization was winning for a bit, and then when I say colonization, I mean the Europeans having um, a hard influence, whether it was forced or bribe or in any of those other fashions, to to be instrumental in telling us who we are as a people. And so now the upswing is that we are a lot. We whether we're allowed or not, we are engaging in our First Nations ceremonial practices and traditions, be it the big powwow celebration where everybody's invited, like all communities come together, or if it's just being having private family ceremonies. When I my oldest son passed away 2 years ago, we were in COVID mode, and when we as First Nations people have someone pass on to the spirit world, we feed them. It's called a feast, and what we do is we make a big meal, and we collect a little bit on a plate, a little bit of every food, and just as they say that Jesus was able to feed thousands of people on 4 fish or however many fish it was, that's what this plate of food does. It we get it together, and we pray with our spirit people, and we put that food into the fire, and then when that food gets burnt up and it goes into the smoke up to the sky, it multiplies hundreds of times, and it feeds many people who are around our fire. So even though COVID dictated that we could only have 30 people together, and just me, myself, my own little family with my children, my grandchildren, I have about 30 people. And so my extended family is 12 brothers and sisters and hundreds of nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. And so because we needed the ceremonial part of allowing our son, their cousin, their brother, or whatever, to go on to the spirit world, we know that we need to feed them. Just like when you know your family's going on a long trip, what do? You make a big meal for them, and we send them off with a full belly, and that we do the same thing in this with our spirit people, and we feed them, and we feed all our spirit people. And so because COVID had dictated only 30 people and we had hundreds of people that wanted to participate, we used technology, and we did. So I'm not sure if you understand what a pipe and what the pipe does for us as a
Yes.
people. We put tobacco in there, or some kinnikinnick, and we put it in there, and we burn it, then we smoke the pipe, and that's what it is, and that's how our prayers go up. And so we had our pipe man lift the pipe in one community about an hour away. There was about 30 of us in our house, but while we were doing the funeral part of it, like the whole the praying and the last viewing and all that, after that was over, I told them that we were going to have a virtual feast. And so what everybody did was they were at their homes, and everybody cooked up, a little bit of soup, a little bit of berries, a little bit of bannock, because there's 5 things you need for the feast. That's soup and berries, bannock, tea, and lard. And so everybody
Right.
got those things together on a smaller scale, each to their own home. And everybody did the Facebook thing. He lifted the pipe there. We were praying here. I said the prayers, and I talked to
Oh,
everybody. And yeah, so we're still doing it. We still have that feel and that need to connect with our spirit people. And that's not necessarily just our own um, traditions and cultures. That's everybody's, but that's how we identify with it as First Nations people here in Turtle Island. So, um, with that being said, our we're allowed to share in public forum, therefore reaching all of my whole family of hundreds of people. We couldn't be together, but we're still teaching our kids that you pray and you respect and you do these things. So all lots of those kids in that there understand that, and they know that the things that they need to do when a baby's born or when somebody passes away, there's certain ceremonies that you do,
Mhm.
even if it's just washing that, like when they pass away, you wash them in sage, just kind
Yep.
of a renewing of
Yep.
life, because
Yep.
they're going on to a new life. And so with all of that affecting our new parents, they are eager for information. And
Mhm.
so they are eager for programming and for anybody that who can help them to do their parenting. And that is such a good thing, because a lot of our elder people are still very stuck and unhealed from their student residential school days. And so to have programming like ours, like ours is not the all begin all and end all by any means, but it is a
Mhm.
very good program. And I
Mhm.
believe that we can help all these new little parents to be able to look inside to see where they came from, to take what was good from it, apply it to their own life, and take out the negative and leave it out and feel good about it. Feel good that they are um, parenting in a good way, in a heartfelt way, in a way that they can actually look at those seven virtues and say, am I parenting humbly? Am I teaching my children humility? Am I teaching my children to respect that next door old lady? Am I teaching my children, to respect that little baby or a little child that's crying and is lost? Is my child going to go and say, "Can I help you?" Or is my child going to be the one that just said, I'm out of here? You know, it's all in how we react to other situations while our children are around.
Mhm. Well, I want to just say, Gloria, how honored I am that you stepped up when we talked about this and you were willing to invest the time and the energy to help me uh, to put it all together. Because between what you know and what I know, we've got over 100 years of life's experience here. We've got about 130 years of life's experience just between the two of us. And so we're both elders. And I mean, why not? I mean, we're the ones, right, to pass down the great information. And so I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. And we had a heck of a good time down there in Kananaskis, and people heard us. And as you're aware, I mean, I was taking calls on Good Friday from people who heard about us and who weren't even there. They
Oh,
weren't even there, and they heard about us. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to us bringing up two more groups in Muskeg Lake. We also have a group coming up from clients in Pelican Narrows. And so one community at a time,
mhm.
and the more they hear about us, the more we learn. And I'll be sharing our show today with pretty much every community out there, and they will know about us. And because we have something really, really valuable to offer. And
Yeah,
like you said, our young people are hungry
yeah.
for the information. They don't want to keep doing things the same old way. They
No,
don't
you're
want
right.
their kids to see the inside of a detox center. They do not want their kids going to jail or committing suicide or any of that. So I think we're in a good place and space. Thank you,
Hmm.
Creator. Right
Hmm.
time, right space, right product. And we also can put out an invitation to anybody out there who would like to either contact Gloria or I'll put Gloria's information up here, if you want to just come in and visit and have an experience in the workshop to see if it's something that you would like to do. It doesn't cost anything to come in and visit and have a look. And everybody needs all the information they can get to make a good decision. So we can also be putting out invitations, Gloria, to have people come in and just visit with us. So back to you. We've got about 5 minutes, and maybe just put out some words of encouragement to our young people. I see Sylvia's here. I have to put a plug in for Sylvia because she's one of our team members. And we're going to bring Sylvia out to Alberta, and I'm hoping that Gloria can hook up because Sylvia is an accomplished author, illustrator, and publisher. And I know that within our communities, Gloria, there are many, many stories that need to be
Lots of
published.
stories. Lots of stories.
Lots of stories. So Sylvia will be a big part of that project. So over to you, Gloria, just to wrap up for us today. Thank you so much for being here. I can't talk enough about it. We could do a show every day as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. It's our show. We can do whatever we want. So over to you, Gloria, just to wrap up, to encourage anybody out there who would like to know more.
Yeah, so one of the things that I really embraced about the program when I first joined and began taking programming was not only do we look at where we've been, where has history taken us, and we take some of that and we look at it, and was it a good thing and was it not a good thing, and we decipher and we talk about that, as I said earlier, and we choose to bring it forward in our family, or do we choose to let it go? And when anybody has other people to sound off their, talking about things and stuff like that, it becomes more clarified within them, so that they can make those good decisions, so that when they make that decision, they make the commitment. One of the big things that I really took away from our last session, I believe it was, or the one before, was the fact that how prevalent yelling is in our lives, and how acceptable it is, and what a beautiful life it would be for our children to never have anyone yell at them, get out of bed, get ready, brush your teeth. There's so many more beneficial ways to get those actions done with your children, by loving encouragement and complimenting, and just being calm your own self, and just never being that person that yells. And so one of our parents said, yeah, I hear you, because I'm a yeller. I yell, and he doesn't like that about himself, and he wants to stop it, and he's going to stop it, and he's made that commitment to, okay, there's no more yelling in my house, that it's going to go away now. And for him to have seen that was so beautiful for me, because he's got 3 little wild kids, and for them to be able to be raised in a calm setting, controlled setting, where everybody feels safe to be able to bring anything to the table. And when I say to the table, I mean like anytime we have any kind of family time or sharing time or anything, all participants feel that sense of confidence in themselves, that even though it was a shitty situation that had happened, they can bring it to the table and get some kind of clarification or backup of some kind, And so, yeah, very, very enlightening, very nice to think of what we think of as a perfect little family that doesn't have any, trials and tribulations in them, but as close as we can get to that is what we would like to put out there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Gloria, thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're maxed out over there doing your work. I'm Laurie Davis. You've been listening to the Laurie Davis Show here on E360 TV. And tomorrow, please treat yourself to a recorded show. I'm on the road tomorrow, but on Thursday we'll do another live show again. So, Gloria, once again, just thank you so much for being our guest today and helping me to put the word out about something that is so, so important, and I know so very close to both of our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have good information, we have a moral obligation to share it. And it's like if a woman finds a great dish detergent, you're going to tell everybody. So, so thank you for that, and I'll be chatting with you. So bye for now, everyone. Thank you for being here, and we'll talk soon.
Oops.